Hey everybody, and welcome back to Cityscape Brewing. Are you having a Halloween or Thanksgiving party, or going to one, and want to be super awesome? Well, I'm going to show you how you can bring your beer with you and show off a cool way of serving it by taking a real pumpkin like this one or a fake pumpkin like this one and making it into a serving jockey box for your party. But first, hit that like and subscribe button, grab yourself a beer, and let's get after it. Also, if you think these videos are awesome, buy me a beer. You can hit the link right here or in the video description below. All the help is appreciated. Cheers. All right, so let's talk about some things you're gonna need to get started. First, you're gonna need a pumpkin, either using a real one or a fake one like this. And I would choose to use the fake one only for the fact that this gets a little soggy and messy, but it is kind of cooler than using a new pumpkin. So if you wanted to use a real one, you would carve out the top of this thing and scoop out all of the insides like you would if you were carving a real pumpkin anyway, because the idea is that we're going to have a hollow space in the middle of either one of these to put ice and water to chill down our beer as we're serving it through the pumpkin itself. So I'm not going to use a real one today. I'm going to show you on this false one here, but the instructions are exactly the same. Most of the other stuff that you're gonna need is actually stuff that you probably already have for your kegerator if you already keg your beer. And so you could reuse a lot of that stuff, or you can buy new ones if you're just gonna plan on reusing this in the future, but you definitely don't have to. You probably already have it. First is a faucet and shank, and this is what you're gonna be putting onto the pumpkin to serve our beer. Next, you'll need some tubing. And so this stuff is the smaller, thinner stuff that if you've watched my jockey box video, you'll know what I mean. This is 3/16 inside diameter with a 5/16 outside diameter, which means it has a smaller wall, so it helps cool the beer down faster when it's inside of my jockey box. I'm gonna do the same method inside of the pumpkin. Alternatively, you can use the thicker walled regular serving line, which is still 3/16 diameter inside, but it's got a larger thickness, therefore it doesn't crimp as easily. Since this is going to be coiled nicely like this inside of our pumpkin, we definitely don't need to have the larger, thicker walled ones. You're going to probably need about 10 to 12 feet of this hose. In addition, you'll want some hose clamps, a few zip ties, a spade bit for either 1 inch or 7/8 in this case for drilling into the pumpkin for our shaft, and then some drill bits for having the tubing come out of the back of the pumpkin into our keg. Last but not least, we will also need a knife or a carving tool for the pumpkin itself. All right, first let's get started carving this thing out. What you want for the hole on the top of your carving pumpkin is just a hole large enough to fit your hand inside so we can tighten up the nut for our shaft that goes to our faucet. And so you can also pour some ice on the inside of this vessel, but you don't want it so large that you have to take off the entire top. So I'm gonna just probably stay right around the crown of this thing and cut a hole so we can get onto the inside. And there we go. We have that thing all carved out. And as you can tell, very hollow. So we have a lot of room for ice and other things on the inside. These faux pumpkins are quite shallow, but you'll just want to clean up the edges and stuff because it does this foam does kind of get brittle as you're cutting it. All right, next we're gonna find the front of this thing, and then we're gonna find the flattest spot possible near the top where we can drill a hole for our faucet and shank to go through. And we want this to be higher on the top of the pumpkin on purpose because we're gonna fill this with ice and water on the bottom, and you don't want any of that leaking out. Plus, it will also give people enough room to put their glass underneath the faucet to fill up their beer. So I've just marked a spot right here in the middle. We're gonna take our spade bit here and we're going to start slowly drilling a hole. Again, not too fast because we don't wanna break this foam. We wanna go nice and slow till we get that all the way through to the middle. And then we can screw in our shaft. Even if it's a little tight, I'm erring on going to a 7/8 bit because I want it to be a little bit snug. I can always screw the head of this thing on here a little tighter since it's threaded through the foam. I don't want it to be loose and move around a lot because this needs to be secure enough to pour a tap beer out of. And there you go, we have our hole in the front. We're gonna go ahead and just clean up this little mess, but first we're going to drill another hole for our tubing. And so I'm gonna be using a 5/16 drill bit. Again, we're gonna wanna do that on the opposite side of our hole, right? So we're gonna do the direct opposite side of the pumpkin, again, high on the back, so we don't have water spilling out of it when we fill this thing up with ice and water later to cool down our lines. All right, next, we're gonna go ahead and start putting in our shank and our faucet. Again, if this is tight, you can rotate it and that will actually help it thread and keep a snug fit around the foam, or if you're using the pumpkin. So I would err again on the smaller side. Don't try to shove that thing in there because it can break. This foam is a little bit more brittle, but it is sturdy enough to hold the tap. And next, we're going to go ahead and thread on the nut to the back side of the shank and tighten it up. Again, we don't want to go too tight because we can crack this or even the real pumpkin, so we're just going to want to get it snug. All right, we have that on here, and don't worry if the shank and the tap handle are a little heavy and it's tipping over. We're going to have ice and ice water in the inside of this, and that's going to weigh it down and hold that in place. But for now, we need to get our hose inside of here. You want to use any hose clamps that you have so you can help get that onto the nipples for both the shank here and as it comes out of the pumpkin on the back side to your post connection. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about the hose itself. You're going to want to find the diameter inside of your pumpkin and kind of create a coil like this one. And it's easy also if you take a couple of zip ties and you zip tie them up in that circle, because this will help keep it together, but you don't want it to be really pinched so it cuts off the beer circulation, but it doesn't help it unravel or uncoil while it's inside of the pumpkin. So I'm going to take a couple of these guys and I'm going to zip tie them on there, and then I'm going to clip off the ends just so it stays together while it's inside of the pumpkin. And if I need to get a little extra hose, I can pull a few of these things through, like this one here, to come out the back, so it has enough room to go from the bottom to the top of the pumpkin. Also, it may be helpful to dip the hose into some hot water so it loosens up the outside edge of the wall of the hose so you can slip it on the hose barb a little easier on the inside and on the outside of the pumpkin. All right, you might find it easier to actually take the hose from the inside and run it through here to connect to your shaft. But if you do that, remember, you need to put the nut on first inside of the pumpkin so you're able to get that, then run it through the outside wall. Then you can heat it up in your water for a few seconds. Then you should be able to easily push on the hose onto the nipple, like so. And there we go. Our pumpkin jockey box is ready to go. All we have to do is run some sanitizer through this line, and then we can hook up a beer, add some ice and some water on the inside of the pumpkin, and we're ready to serve. So once you get this thing all hooked up, you run your line to your keg like you normally would. You'd hook it up to CO2 like you normally would in your kegerator, and you're off to the races. I would put your keg in a bucket of ice if you can to keep it cold, because it will keep this beer in the line cold, but you also want the beer staying cold in the keg if possible outside as well. And you want the line to be as short as possible from your pumpkin to your keg, just so it doesn't have any room to warm up in between the two. So while other Halloween parties may seem cool, are they pouring your own pumpkin ale out of a pumpkin cool? I don't think so. All right, and there you guys have it, pumpkin jockey box. It's gonna be cool for your Halloween parties, your Thanksgiving parties. Everyone's gonna enjoy it, and they're gonna get to enjoy your fresh, cold beer. So with that, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Happy brewing, and cheers. Hey, Thanks for watching my video. I really do appreciate it. A way you can support the channel is just by buying me a beer. There's a button right there on the screen, and there's a link in the video description below. You can also check out the merchandise in our store, and you can hit the video on the screen right now. You know you want to.